everybody. I'm here with Audrey McFarlane. Audrey, thanks so much for joining me again. I think this is your third or fourth.
Yeah,
Really? I don't know.
I always enjoy our conversations.
Yeah, me too, man. And it's good to see you. I know it's been a while because you guys have been busy, and we love having you because you sort of see the perspective from the top of the mountain down. Not saying that's your attitude, that's just your positioning, okay? So you're privy to see things, experience things that the rest of us might not, but we have you here now, so we're hoping that you're going to hook us up, okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Right on, buddy. But listen, you know what? I'm coming out right out of the gate. I didn't know, but I think it's only fair to say congratulations. And acknowledge that you were named a member of the Alberta Order of Excellence. Can I just say that is fantastic? And congratulations, dude.
Thanks. It's really nice. It was, we had a great ceremony in Edmonton with the Lieutenant Governor, and very special and humbling to receive such an honor.
Yeah, but okay. I got to get you off the diplomatic track fast. I get it less and less each time. But what happened? Did you get a call? Did you shit yourself? Or you're like, holy smokes, did you expect it? Give us
I had no idea it was coming. And the Lieutenant Governor phoned me one summer day when I was in my garden, and I thought it was my friends playing a joke on me. And so I was like, yeah, right. And she was like, no, I get that a lot. I really am the Lieutenant Governor, and you are really getting this award. So yeah, it was pretty fabulous. And, you never do these things alone. And I sure hope that all the people that have worked with me over the years see themselves reflected in that award too. And that, most of the people that get those kinds of awards are working in business or in politics.
Yeah, dude, I saw the former Prime Minister
is finally getting some recognition.
Okay, so that was my, as we do as advocates, you backdoor it, right? Come in the front door or something else, and you got the FASD on your pockets. Were you able to express that in media? How did you squeeze it in there? Because I know they made it a deal about your work, but would they just skim over it, or did you just go after and use it as an education platform?
Yeah, for sure. We talked about it in all the media interviews, and people were really surprised about a lot of the facts that I was able to throw in there, and so was able to make it. But I mean, people wanted to really shift it to talk about me and my accomplishments, but I wanted to shift it and move it to FASD.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I think there was a balance. And then at the actual ceremony, there was a lot of really important people there, senators, and, Stephen Harper got an award as well as the Prime Minister. And so I was able
to. Were they all there? Take me into that. Okay, take me into that. Was it swanky? Was it just old and stuffy? I got a doily and Werther's Original vibe?
It did, but
yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. I get it.
Super formal, and probably the most formal event that I have ever been to. And yeah, totally ceremonial. So everything had a purpose, and where you have your own personal aide, and he tells you where to stand, when to bow, when to back up, when to sit down. Yeah, it was all that. But at the end,
so you had a one-on-one support worker.
Yeah, that's
and it makes it easier, and you were probably less nervous, right?
Yeah,
I'm trying to tie this back into FASD. So, okay, so was Stephen Harper there?
Yes, he was. He sat at my table for dinner.
Does he still have security?
Yes.
Right? Is that uneasy though, or is it just a couple of dudes that are get the retirement duty?
They, you don't really notice them. They kind of blend into the background a bit, especially in an event like that. The risks are probably lower than if he's at a public event. So yeah, no, that part was fine. And
it always creeped me out because you have these intrusive thoughts, because we all do. I'm not going to sit here and say them, but you know what I'm saying, right? And so you're like, oh my gosh, these guys will clean my clock. Anyways, that's just me. Moving on. What are you going to do with this now? What does this do? Is plaque on the wall, or is there still things you could use with this to move the FASD agenda?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm still trying to get a bit more media out of it, but I think that what it has done is it's opened a few other doors for me in terms of recognition of my expertise, perhaps, and
Ah,
that FASD is an actual worthy thing to be working on. So it has opened a few other doors like that to be able to talk to more politicians, and so I'm certainly going to take that advantage for sure to open whatever door I can to push forward more about what people with FASD need.
no, where'd you put the award?
Oh, it's well, I did have like a little
Like, answer all the
shrine.
questions we want to know, dude.
Yeah, I did have a little shrine in my dining room with the that you get a big plaque, a scroll, and like there's an award that actually hangs around your neck, and then you get like
Oh,
pins
yeah, like those
there. Yeah,
medallion things, like almost like a mare, sort of, right?
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I can send you some pictures. You can put them in the show notes.
Dude, I need to put them in the show. I'll tell you why. Because that's a big deal, man. I know, like, I provide some levity, but at the end of the day, that's like someone recognizing your lifetime of work and putting it all in. And you're right, we are like the little brother or sister compared to some of the other causes out there, and you have to fight extra hard. And we have similar personalities in terms of like, what's next? Let's go, keep going. So I guess it may just stop a little bit and do some of the reflection and say, holy poop, like, yeah, we've done pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm super pleased about the whole thing, and I don't really know where it'll take us, but I'm willing to walk through those doors that open for sure.
Cool, man. And let's just keep the good times rolling, because you also had your very first conference, and I say yours, CANFASD, correct, in Saskatoon. And from what I saw and what I heard, it was awesome. You were telling me, am I embellishing, 600 people, 500, 600? Give us tell us about it, man.
Yeah, I mean, it was so great. People were just so excited to be back in person, to see one another. And I heard so many times as I'm walking down the hall, oh, I've only just seen you on Zoom. It's so nice to meet you in person, right? So that there was a lot of that kind of thing. In the end, I think we had a total of 575 folks.
Wow, man, that's awesome.
A great integration of people with lived experience, researchers, service providers, professionals, policymakers, and we had some really great conversations in the sessions. I didn't get to nearly as many of them as
Well,
I
you could
wanted
never,
to,
sure.
and we sure missed you, Jeff.
Hey,
But there was lots of caregivers there that mentioned you and the work that you're doing as well.
yeah, thanks, man. I was very like green with envy in the best way, because I know how we like to have such a good time with those. But you're doing another one, so
Yeah, next
and
one.
tell us about that. Like, come on, let's give us the insight, because people were like, I heard this was a jam. Before I do that, though, let me share this. I'm going to just play this little clip, because one of our coaches for our online coaching program went, Christine
Oh, good.
Bofingham, with pink hair, you can tell she walks into the room. She owns it. She's the best. Anywho, I asked her what she thought. I'm just going to play this.
So what I really liked about the CANFASD conference was the collection of minds gathered into one space. And that was something I even talked to Audrey about. But what I loved about the CANFASD conference was the idea that we can bring people together from all over the world, work towards a better understanding and future. And in that, we find hope. And hope is always the first step for our families, but also just to move forward. And that means for educating doctors, that means for educating families, for educating coaches, for educating everybody with new information. So I left there, the conference, feeling very hopeful for the future of FASD. That's what I found at the conference.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Isn't it?
I'm so glad to hear that, because I mean, we worked really hard to try to bring that atmosphere of collectiveness together and to have that message of hope. We don't have all the answers, but working together, we will get there. And so, yeah, in the sessions, often there was a researcher would give their bit, then a service provider would say how that's working, in their perspective. And then we'd have somebody with a lived experience, a caregiver or a person with FASD that would give their perspective on the topic. And it was really meaningful for everybody. And I think that, sometimes at these conferences, families and individuals, they don't feel heard. They feel subjected and tested and, almost guinea pigs to the research. But I think at this conference, at least that's what we tried to do, was to make sure that their voices were amplified and that they would be heard by others. And I certainly heard from the researchers that they loved that format as well, that they loved hearing that perspective, and it gave their work more meaning. So I think, I hope that
it does, because they're sitting there in their labs or over their papers, and it isn't glamorous or glorious. So it's nice to get that validation and that recognition, and what they're doing is important. I am on that train totally. Okay, but also tell us any holy crap moments, something crazy happened or something was scheduled, and tell us an uh-oh.
Yeah. The inside scoop.
Oh, I want my people, they want to hear tell us, because you're a human being, right? So I had I just did one of those the previous May, so I get it. Things get squirrely. My point is I like to humanize people and let people know that they could do big things. It's not all glamour and grace. So it's also fun to share stories. So what happened?
I can give you 2 examples.
Yeah, did.
So we had a fabulous networking event one night. And so a couple things happened. One, 2 days before, we still didn't have the mocktails to serve at this mocktail event. They only came in the morning of that event. So we were sweating bullets that we weren't going to have any mocktails. And we, as a backup, asked Lakeland, who does mocktail events all the time, to bring and prepare a mocktail for us, because we were really worried that we weren't going to get these other mocktails that had been sponsored to us in time. But everything always comes together, and it was a fabulous event. And honestly, I think 500 of those 575 people attended that event. It was just, wow. I know, I wasn't expecting that many, but we so happy for all of them to be there.
Yeah, so you got some things. Okay, what's the other one? Yeah.
The other one is that Dr. Sterling Claren was scheduled to do the keynote address at the end of the conference. You know him, and he's been a longtime friend of mine, and he's been in the field forever. And he was to give the hopeful wrap up, kind of a little history and what he learned at the conference, and then send people on their hopeful way. And he had to cancel due to illness in the family just a couple of days before the conference. So yours truly had to do the keynote at the end. And anyone who knows me knows that I love to talk about FASD. I'm good at the information dump. But I struggle with a hopeful message, being really thought-provoking and, all that kind of good stuff that comes at the end of a conference. And so I ended up spending most of the evenings at the conference writing that talk. And I think it went over pretty well. I think I did a good job. I'd be interested in your followers' feedback, but there was a standing ovation at the end. So
buddy, they don't just give those up for free. And so you're coming out, even you, out of your comfort zone.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Did you sleep for a week after, or what?
Well, no, I slept definitely that weekend. I didn't move far from the Netflix, but I had to rally and wrap up for the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addictions conference, which was a week later. Ooh. So I only had a few days in between that I had to prep. And of course, while I'm planning our conference, I was not thinking at all about their conference. So I had to really put into it. So last week was the first time that I was actually, oh gosh, all these things are finally over. So,
but you love doing it.
A couple of weeks now.
But you love it.
Yeah, loved it. Loved.
What was the most soul-filling part about the conference?
I don't know if I can pinpoint one moment,
That's fair.
but I loved that all the people with FASD that were there had meaningful roles. You and I have talked about this before. I really struggle with exploitation of folks when you put them up on the big stage, on a big panel, and then that's the only thing that you see from them for the entire conference. So trying to give people really meaningful roles, and for Miles Himmert to be the MC, and he did a
Oh yeah.
masterful job.
Yeah.
He's such
That's his wheelhouse for sure.
Yeah, he did a great job. And I think, as a great role model, we had so many people with FASD at the conference that had not been to a conference before, maybe was their first time to be in a speaking role. And he really modeled the opportunities and the potential. And he also met with all those folks in advance of the conference and gave them his wisdom of how to handle questions and how they can make their presentations better. So I think that was really impactful. And then I think the other thing that I really loved was the space that we carved out in the conference to talk about prevention. Often at these conferences, we're so focused on improving the lives of that we don't leave that space for those important conversations. And so we were able to have a panel that was focused on prevention. And then in each session block, there was at least one prevention talk to go to. So for me, and all that went off well, the integration was good. So yeah, I think it was really helpful. And I love that part. So we're going to try to duplicate it at the next one.
Why do you feel prevention needed to have, because, I'm not really good with words either, a bigger seat at the table at your conference?
Yeah, well, I think that, in the beginning, when we first ever started talking about FASD, back in the 70s and probably most of us in the 80s, we only wanted to talk about prevention. Politicians only wanted to talk about prevention. They didn't want to talk about anything else. And so I think that we've evolved, and then we really carved out space to talk about what people with FASD, their families, and their communities need. And so then prevention has taken a back seat. So I think that bringing it back to the forefront, having equal footing, I think they both have to go together. And you know what? All the things that we do in interventions and diagnosis is also part of prevention. You can't separate them all out. They impact one another completely. So I think that's important messaging to get across to everybody.
Yeah, okay, good point taken. No problem. But let's talk about some other cool stuff you guys are doing, because you do not rest on your laurels, I'll tell you that. Okay, so you guys are also doing some other stuff. And it's not just about prevention, but you're also in the trenches, in the weeds with our parents. And one of the things we know is that 90% of individuals on the spectrum will have mental health issues at some point in their lives, anxiety, depression, or both. And so it's one thing for you guys to do the research on it. It's another thing for you guys to do actions on it. And you guys have just coming out or are coming out with a wicked new mental health toolkit. So is it out yet, or is it coming out?
It's out. It's on our website. Yeah, it's on our website. It's under interventions. We worked with the Canada Northwest FASD Partnership on this project because we were hearing from so many caregivers that their mental health professionals were not equipped to deal with their mental health issues and their FASD, and sometimes their substance use as well. And so we really wanted to not have people with FASD turned away at the door once they disclosed their diagnosis. And so it meant giving mental health providers tools in order to better prepare them to work with this population. And so that's what we did. So this toolkit is for those mental health therapists, professionals, not so much the psychiatrists, because we didn't really go into all the medications and all that kind of stuff, but really those folks that are doing the counseling and the therapy on the front lines. And so it walks them through a whole bunch of different things and information, and it's really practical. There's lots of tips and tricks from people that have been doing this work in the field. There's information from caregivers and people with FASD themselves. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that we think is useful. Now, I know that most of your audience is caregivers, so there is some information that you can go in there and print off as well to take with you to give to your mental health therapist so that they can know about this resource and share the information with them, so hopefully that you can get a better service as well.
Yeah, that's important. And are you open to feedback? Of course, I'm assuming.
Always. We're always
Yeah,
open to feedback, for sure. Now, but remembering, this is meant for mental health therapists,
right.
so it's not written for caregivers. But we do want caregivers to be able to pass along and share the information, because they're the first ones at the doors with their loved one trying to get these services, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's key, and it is step one. And I love the fact that you guys do it. Take the research, but then you're trying to build tools. And I can't say nothing except for that is fantastic. And so where particularly on the website? Is it right on the front page, or is
we don't have it on the front. Yeah, we just did a soft launch, so it's not on the front page yet, but it will be shortly. But if you go into interventions and then hit the tab that says mental health and regulation, it's the first thing that comes up.
Ooh, cool. And we'll put it across the screen here. That's awesome. Okay, so you guys are all over the place. Let's keep dancing here. Let's dance from mental health toolkits to dancing inside the political arena. Last time we had talked, you had mentioned about a bill and about what you were learning, especially being in the political sphere. And so has there been an update on that? What's the update on that? What's going down?
Yes. So Senate Bill 253 is the bill to force the federal government, the health department, to develop a framework on FASD, a national framework. So this framework would cover all the things, not so much service delivery, because that falls into the provinces and territories' responsibility, but to give them some guidance in those areas, how to increase diagnostic capacity, how to train everyone about FASD, how to increase the research, how to address prevention in all the different stages. So all of these things would be included in that framework. It's a horrendously long process that I told you about last time. So Senator Ravalia introduced the bill into the Senate last October. It is now it's gone through second reading in the Senate and approved, and now it's gone to the Social Sciences Committee of the Senate. And so it will be reviewed by that committee. They'll invite some folks to come give testimony. They'll ask them their questions. And then it will be hopefully approved at committee, so the third reading, and then it will go to the House of Commons, and it will go through the same process, come back to the Senate and get royal assent. Then Health Canada will be required to develop that framework. It's a really important tool for us, because we need to signal that FASD and FASD prevention are important things that the federal government, the provinces and territories, and various organizations need to be paying attention to. And right now that is kind of hit and miss what's happening. So that's why it is so important for the federal government to show some leadership in this area.
You're also against the clock too, right? Because is it next year there's an election, or yeah, so it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. That's not what this is about. But like, you could push and push and get it all the way through, and then go, right? That's a possibility, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. There is a time clock. If an election is called, then all the bills in the House or the Senate have to start over again.
Yeah, because it's different in Canada. It's not like the US is set. That's the date, son. Like, we call the election, and so then you have 90 days or whatever it is afterwards. We do it a little bit different. Not a big deal. Nonetheless, so have you been back? Like, if you're against the clock, like, what else have you learned since our last rendezvous? Debrief us, because I know there's parents that want to do this too, Audrey. You know that, right? We have sharp parents. We know that FASD causes often parents wanting to stay at home, right? To be full time. And these moms are wicked and they're awesome at what they do. And we have these moms in the weeds. So any new insight?
Yeah, so at CANFASD, we have been trying to meet with as many senators and members of parliament as possible. Over the last year, I have talked to, 50 or 60 of these folks to tell them the importance about the bill, to give them a bit of information about FASD and why this is important. And I have not yet met any of them that are not supportive, that are say, hey.
Yeah, but how do you know? Okay, so this is cynical, Jeff. That's all that's coming out here. And that they're all smiles. Like, I don't know, because I haven't had a lot of time with politicians. So maybe it's just, this is a limiting belief I have. But how do you know? Oh, yeah. Or how is that just they're good at what they do and they could just subconsciously, like sharks, roll their eyes back and go, oh, yeah, this is great.
Well, I think that you can tell by the quality of the questions that they ask.
Fair. Okay.
And also, if they reach out and ask for follow-up information, which several of them have.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So I think that there is genuine interest for sure. And, last October when Senator Ravalia entered that bill into the Senate, we had a big event on Parliament Hill. We had a reception for MPs and senators. And some of those folks, that was nonpartisan. It was from all parties. And some of those folks have stayed in touch with us, some of those MPs. So I think that that's really important. And that tells me that there is definitely interest for sure in things moving ahead. And Senator Ravalia wanted to come to the conference, but at the last minute wasn't able to. So he sent a video talk, and we were able to share that with the audience one of the mornings. And I think that keeping everybody informed is really good. So if you have families that want to reach out to their MP, we do have some information on our website about the bill and the messaging that we're using. Please go and check that out. Contact your MP if you want to. If you want to check in with me first, happy to help you to do that, or to join you in that conversation. Happy to. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's way stronger.
Okay, that's a big deal, dude. You heard it here. That's an exclusive. Okay, because here's my follow-up. It's not about that. It's about you. What are you telling yourself to come out of your comfort zone like this? Because I've known you now for a while, my friend, and we both have growth in different areas, and this is the one I see you in. Like, what are you telling yourself when you're doing absolutely scary shit that 5 years ago maybe you would be like, no, thanks?
Yeah. Well, I always kind of think that if you're genuine and, you're doing it for the right reasons, I can usually push through. If it was for me, I wouldn't be able to do it. But because it's for someone else, I feel like I can push through.
Okay.
And I think too, being prepared. Like, I'm a firm believer, like when you're talking to these MPs and these senators, I write out actually what I'm going to say to them. And that really helps to give me confidence and, that I'm not going to say something wrong or whatever. But they know we're just people too. And sometimes you mess up, or you're having a bad day. But really, we know our stuff. We know what's right. And they can sense that in us, right? That we know what we're talking about. And I think that goes a long way with the politicians.
And also in the way you answer your questions too, right? Like making sure you're prepared. Okay, this is just off the cuff and I didn't ask you to prepare this. What are some general follow-up questions you get about FASD? Just so maybe a parent could go, oh, I could prepare for that.
Yeah, so there's been quite a bit of interest in alcohol policy, which is not really all that sexy or interesting for caregivers. But there's been a number of follow-ups around labeling, because there's also a Senate bill going through. Senator Barrasso is asking for the harms of alcohol to be placed on alcohol containers as a label. And that has happened in many other countries. And Australia was able to get through one of the labels is about the risks of alcohol in pregnancy, right? So those two kind of married each other. And so we did get quite a bit of follow-up about that. We've had a number of questions about understanding better the diagnostic process and why there hasn't been the diagnostic uptake, across the country. And I don't have a good answer for that one.
No, that's so you don't, right? You just don't know?
Yeah,
that's fair,
so I provide them with the information that we do have. And, that
that's
kind of
being honest, saying I don't have those answers.
Well, that's part of
right?
the research that needs to happen, right? Why do we have a certain diagnostic clinics in every single province and territory, but not evenly for FASD? So, I don't quite understand that myself. I would like to dive into it. I would like to have the
Yeah,
resources.
like to find out why. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what you guys do. That's what
yeah,
research does. That's what
yeah,
policy people do in terms of progressing things and moving forward. Like, we can't write a policy until we find out why, and
yeah,
we need resources to find out why, and we need people behind us to find out why, to give us
yeah,
access so we can find out why. And then we could do something about it. Something like that, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, in a nutshell, right? I should run for one of these. Let me talk about this stuff. So you do the political stuff, you're doing the research, you're doing the conferences, but what I love about you guys is always staying grounded and having a group. You have more than one group. I know you have individuals on the spectrum, you have a family advisory committee, and from what I understand, if that's still true, you guys have an opening for that, right? So tell us what that is, like, and what role and who could apply for something like that.
Yeah, so we have a family advisory committee, and it provides us with information right from the very beginning of a research project. So even sometimes helping us to identify what research projects are needed. And so I know that you've had Dr. Mansfield-Mila on your show a few times. And so the cannabis work that he's been doing came directly from the Family Advisory Committee. They asked him to check into, what are the impacts of cannabis use with their loved ones. So, and then they helped to design that project with him. They were able to then participate, share out all that information. And now they're in the stage where, okay, we have all this information. What does it mean? How do we share this? Who needs to hear this? And in what format? So they get right from the beginning to the end of the project. And each member of the Family Advisory Committee can pick and choose which areas they want to. Some families have more time than others. And so you just do what you can do. They meet monthly by Zoom, and they have presentations on the research. Sometimes they're just chatting about various topics to kind of get a feel for what's needed. So we do
So
have
who's needed? Like, who is needed? Who is the perfect, person for you guys?
Well, I know this is a hard one, but we would love to have somebody that has teenagers to participate. So, and young children. So, it's often not until your kids are older that you actually have time to breathe and do
Amen.
these kinds of committees, right? I totally understand that. But we do need the voices of those with younger folks to be helping us to identify. Otherwise, all the issues we hear from the family advisory will be about adults. And I don't want to forget about all the early years stuff. So that would be great. We have an opening right now for somebody from the Yukon. And when I say from, it doesn't mean that you represent all of the families in that territory. It's just you represent you and your situation, and you're from that area.
Yeah, so you have your bases covered, right? You got some, because you guys don't have a central hub. You said it way better than what I just said it right now. I made it sound like a headquarters in a Marvel movie, but you guys have people. That's why, you're all over the place.
Yeah, that's right.
On the ground is really strategic and smart. Now, let's get in front of the people who just say, yeah, but, I would love to do that. Yeah, but I'm not smart enough. Yeah, but I don't have a university degree. Yeah, but how do we get in front of that? So we stop that stinking thinking, because there could be people listening to this that are perfect for the role, but are telling themselves they aren't.
Yeah, for sure. So we need someone that has the time that they can commit to attending the meetings. And we also need someone that has an interest in the research. So we're not there just to complain about life and how things are. We're really trying to focus in on those experiences, and so that we can move the research agenda forward. So I think that's about it. We're not looking for university degrees, although, if you have one, that's helpful.
Sure.
But that's not the focus of the group. But I also want to say we have openings coming up this year for someone from BC and someone from Northwest Territories, because you can only do so many years on the family advisory
There's
committee.
a mandate, so people's I see their terms are.
Yeah, you sign up for a 2-year term, but you can't do more than 8 years altogether. So some people are reaching the ends of their terms. That's why we have so many openings.
Oh, see, you guys seem so nice, but you're just like putting the old dogs to pasture. That's what's
Well,
up. You need a new, you
you
need
need
that
new
lifeline.
voices.
I
You
know
need
it's true. It's true. I'm just
Yeah.
shitting. Yeah. Okay. But what about this though? You have that. So that's someone from the Yukon, but people often want to get involved. And how could people from all over get involved? You guys are still doing that mega survey. Now, mega, I don't mean, it's going to take you 2 weeks to do, but have you gotten any initial feedback from that? How can people get involved? What's involved in that? And why is it important that people get involved, that you
Yeah.
do?
So on our website, we do have a caregiver survey. I think it's called CARE. Can't remember exactly what it stands for, sorry.
I know.
But it is a great survey. And we did it because we're doing all these research projects and, we don't, sometimes it's like the researchers will say, oh, it'd be so good to know how many caregivers are coping with substance use. How many caregivers are actually grandparents? I mean, we hear that all the time, but we don't actually know. And we don't know how many grandkids they're raising. And we also don't know, are their policy needs different than, other caregivers? So we need to learn more about that. So there is this survey. It is a mega survey, Jeff. It is. I'm not going to lie. It is a hefty survey.
I will. It'll take you 30 seconds to do.
but you can come and go from it. Yeah, you can come and go. That's fine. And but we really do want more caregivers to fill that out. We have some summary information already that we pulled.
Why? But why do you want them to fill it out? Like what? How does, just tell me in plain English, how is it going to help?
Yeah, so we are going to use that information to help change policy. So if we hear that, let's go back to the grandparent example, that grandparents actually need different services than other caregivers, younger caregivers, then we will go to those policy people who are providing services to children with disabilities and say, these are the service needs of grandparents, and you should be asking these questions when you have grandparents before you and offering these supports, right? So those are the kinds of things that we want to be able to directly use that information. And we can't do that when we only have one-offs. So we have one grandparent telling us a story, and then we have another grandparent telling us another story. But when we have 100 grandparents telling us a similar story, then that's real impactful. And policy people then do pay attention to that. So we have summarized some of the information. It's on our website by the CARE survey.
Got it. I have it right here. Is this the survey spring update?
Yeah.
You guys are so good with your infographics, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. This is excellent information. We will put that in the show notes, fasdsuccess.com/podcast, and we'll put this under. It really is great. So all over the world too, because you've had people in Canada, the US, and Australia participated the last time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we can take people from all over. I mean, in the end, caregivers' needs are not so different no matter where they live.
I agree.
And so we want to capture that, but we want to capture those similarities and differences where we can, and to really be able to tell a better comprehensive story of the struggles and the successes. Like we actually, I think in one of the updates in the newsletter, we included some advice that caregivers were able to give to other caregivers. And I think that's really important too, to be able to share those successes with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they want hope, our caregivers want hope because it's hard. It's the grind every day. So when they're looking up from the ground, and they're exhausted, they have an example, like you said, like Miles, and good examples from the research to know that it is what they're doing is not falling on deaf ears. Mm-hmm. You need this information so you can act on this information.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
100%.
Okay, cool. It is so important. Now, let's talk about what you guys have coming up next, or what are you doing? What's cooking in the kitchen? One thing I do know, we just leaned over it, was you mentioned Toronto in 2025. The year is set. Now, it was a huge success, and there might be some organizations, because it is in Toronto or even international, that say, hey, I want in on this. And so they might want to sponsor or do a table or get involved with you guys some way. Are you open to that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we cannot put these conferences on by ourselves and still keep the costs reasonable, right?
I hear that.
Like, I can tell you that the conference that we did in Saskatoon was about $500,000. And what we brought in on ticket sales was about 200,000. So, we need sponsors to assist and support these kinds of events in order for us to even hold them. We are excited to come to Ontario. Central and Eastern Canada has not held a big conference like this in my memory anyway. They've always been in the West. So we really wanted to try to even that out. So we're going to go, east, west as we evolve this. But yeah, for sure. And it won't always be Saskatoon, Toronto. We're going to move it around the country for sure to give everybody more opportunities to participate.
Okay, cool. So the more the merrier. Let's get it on for sure. And so maybe what else you got like percolating in the lab, maybe behind closed doors, like, come on.
With the conference or with everything in general?
Like, what do you got like sniffing about that maybe you could maybe say, I don't know, maybe we're doing this?
Well, we are trying to think through a couple of things. One is how we utilize the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. In the past year, Canada has had to submit their report to the United Nations about their commitments. And last time was in 2017, and you can look it up. They got a little bit trashed. Canada wasn't doing so well in lots of areas. And so this year, when the government submits their report, the UN requires that what we call civil society also submits their report. So that's usually all the organizations that are delivering services to people with disabilities participate and give their glean on how we're doing in all of these different areas. And for the first time, CANFASD was able to participate in those talks and to have some input into the civil society report to the United Nations. And we were able to get FASD into the actual report. So we were pretty excited about that. That's never happened before. And so we're trying to think, what's the next steps? How do we utilize this convention more to help us push forward and make FASD more known about? So that's pretty exciting, I think.
Yeah. I would think so too, right? It's like a bigger seat at the table. It's like, come sit here, and then sitting at the table, and then speaking up at the table, and then, running the table. I think you're doing great, dude. You're doing like, look at all the stuff you just, and I know you have a team. I totally know that. But somebody's got to pick up phone at first. Someone has to send out those initial emails. And I know you have to do some, well, not shady, but you had to do your job, work hard to get this conference going. And so congratulations on that. And you won a freaking award, and you guys are just killing it. And I love everything about it. So the fact that you are also now in a UN report is so important. Now, it's getting folks to buy in to that. And I know even the dollars and cents are on our side in terms of it making more when you invest money into it. When people figure this out, like, what is the sticking point, dude? Like, why can't, oh my gosh, we see it, I see it. Is it like, because I don't want to get, I'm not conspiracy theory guy, but like, what is it?
Oh, I wish I knew.
The liquor industry, is it like is someone saying in the back, like, no, we're not doing that? Like,
no, I don't know. I think that, I don't know. This is my theory. That
okay, yeah. Only your only opinion. Now we're just shooting the shit. No problem.
Yeah, it's more like people don't think it's as big a problem as it actually is. And that everybody already knows that you shouldn't drink alcohol during pregnancy. Yeah, what's the issue, right? So I think like people just take really simplistic approaches to really complex things. And it doesn't get much more complex than FASD. But
That is true, because you can't see it, like it is hidden, so it's not like when people see a meltdown or an incident with the justice system, they're saying, they're not looking at this person that looks normal, talks normal, and saying, oh, that's an organic brain issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting to me. I mean, it's the same with what we talked about before, with the diagnostic clinics. I don't really understand why the medical profession hasn't picked that up. I mean, in the places where we do have a lot of diagnostic clinics, they've come out of the not-for-profit sector, not necessarily out of the health sector.
Wow.
So it's so interesting, and maybe that's what I'll retire on. I'll write the book about that when I figure it out.
Yeah, well, write the book about how you did that, how you figured that out. No pressure, Audrey, no pressure, but just, why don't you, okay? So just cement your legacy, bridge the gap, get the UN on board, not a big mandate whatsoever. You got it, you know? But honestly, I'm so grateful that you guys are doing the work, because it allows organizations like myself to be confident in their expression of the facts of what's going on, because I feel that way anyways when I share your stuff, and that it has come from you and your amazing team and the researchers and your whole organization, and we're just glad you hang out with us, dude. So we appreciate you being here, and we can't wait to see you again. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. I mean, I really think it's important that we all work together. I mean, we all have a role to play, and researchers cannot do meaningful research if we don't talk to the caregivers and the individuals and their communities. What do they need? Otherwise, we'll just sit in our ivory towers and do I think they need this, and that's probably not what they need. So we need groups like yours to be able to pull all those caregivers together, to feed them the information, but also to collect information from them as well. I know we have lots of conversations where you tell me the things that the caregivers are saying and the things that they need, and we take those really to heart, and we try to do something about them.
Yeah, heck yeah. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. And I like working with you guys, like a partnership. We're going to have more. You guys are doing some awesome research. And for example, I'll have the person responsible for the Mental Health Toolkit, so we can go through that. We're going to provide that to you guys. And I know your team has stuff cooking up, and I love that. And my people love to hear that. And I just think it's a good connection point, not only for arming our caregivers with the best information, but also, like you said, having your researchers or people in general know the work you're doing. When you're tired and you're looking over that numbers, you're looking at the faces of the people who need that information, right? So symbiotic indeed, my lady.
Yes.
Cool. You rule. All right. So you're going to come back. You'll have to be, if you're not third, fourth time, you'll be in the SNL, the 5-time club. Right, so I won't have no monologue or jacket. Maybe a sticker or
we have to think of something. Yeah. Well, maybe we could do something live at the 2025 conference as well. I mean, we'll talk before then, but
geez, dude, it's 2023. I hope so. You're like, yeah, I'll be in touch with you before then. I would, don't put it past us to do, we'd be too close, because we like to get in trouble. We like to stir it up, and people don't know that about you, but I'm telling people that about you right now, and I'll keep it diplomatic. But you're the best, because you do like to throw a wrench, into the cog once in a while to get people to pay attention, and that's rad. So you're rad. So stay awesome.